Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jayati, and I'm so glad to be here with all of you in this very informative session, one that we've been waiting for a really long time. So without any further ado, I'll just introduce you to our guest. He's one of those people who's worked in many big names in the Silicon Valley, from Microsoft to WhatsApp to Essential Products to Uber and many more. We have with us Sir Shobhit Gupta, who's here to share his invaluable experiences and will also give us insights along the way. I'm sure this session is going to be very beneficial for all of us. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you so much, all of you, for attending. Let's get started. So let's do this. I'll start with a brief introduction of mine. I like to have this session be as interactive as possible. So please do interrupt, ask any questions at any point if you have any, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my capability. So to start with, I'll start in order how I started my career. I went for my undergrad in NIT Allahabad. I studied computer science there. After studying computer science, I worked at Goldman Sachs for 3 years. I was a software engineer there, working in equities technologies. People who don't understand, equities is basically another term for stocks. So I was working in their technology division, helping traders trade efficiently in markets, so building software for them. Then I went for doing my master's in computer science from University of Utah in Salt Lake City, USA. And studied there for 2 years, did my master's, joined Microsoft for some time. There I was working on Microsoft Skype product. Some of you probably haven't heard of it. It's Microsoft's video conferencing solution, but not used that much anymore. After working at Microsoft for a bit, I went to work for Amazon, where I was working in Amazon Pay. It was called Amazon Payments back then. But yeah, that's the team I was working for. Then went on and worked at Yahoo. I was leading the Yahoo Mail search team, which, we'll talk more about this, but yeah, basically was trying to rebuild how search should be done for a mail system. I'm sorry, is there a question? Oh, sorry. Okay. After working at after working at Yahoo for a bit, I worked at a startup called Essential Products. They were making Android phones at that time. I worked on their smart home speaker device, similar to Amazon Home or Amazon Alexa in certain respects. After that, I worked at Uber for a bit in Uber's safety engineering team, which mostly deals with improving physical safety for both riders and drivers. So there are lots of innovative solutions we built there to improve safety on an Uber ride. After that, worked at WhatsApp for a bit. Was working in the storage team at WhatsApp, basically improving reliability of WhatsApp messages. For the last 1 year and about 3 months, I've been at FamPay, leading engineering at FamPay. For those of you who don't know, FamPay is a fintech financial product, mostly catered towards younger audience like school-going kids and college-going kids. And we have a prepaid wallet where you can deposit in money, and then you can use that money via various means like UPI. There's a virtual card in the app. There's a physical card that you can purchase. And there are lots of use cases that are directly inbuilt into the app that you can directly make payments to. And it's a very gamified experience. Anytime you do a transaction, you make in-app currency, and then you can use that in-app currency to do other things in the app. So that's the gist of my career throughout through the years. And if there's any question, I can answer those. Otherwise, I can try going into details on each of those things that I did, but would love if anyone has any questions and we can steer the conversation that way. Okay. No worries. Whenever you guys have questions, feel free to ask at any point of time. How do we steer this conversation? So we can, okay. So Aditya is asking, what was the motivation behind leaving high-paid jobs at big companies to start working at a startup like FamPay? Great question, Aditya. I get this question asked a lot. So my reasoning was that I had worked at a lot of big companies, and the learnings that you get from working at a big company usually were similar in nature from one company to another. So joining another big company would not have helped me grow as an engineer or as a leader as much as a small company would have done. So for an example, a very simple thing like how should you do performance evaluation at a company? Those processes are very set at a big company. You know it, every employee knows it, everyone in the company knows it. So there's very limited that a engineering leader has to do. You just have to follow the process already set. And yeah, there was not that much learning that I thought I'll get from doing that at a big company. At a smaller company, I get to actually set a lot of those processes. And I enjoy doing that. So I like talking to people. I enjoy doing things from scratch. And I think a startup would give me that opportunity. And that's the reason I chose to come for a startup. Siddharth is asking, how as a developer can I make myself more industry ready? What are some good practices to have as a developer? I think focusing more on learning right now, rather than thinking about industry ready. I think if you learn well, you will be industry ready. So make yourself a good software engineer first. A lot of people think writing more and more code is it. Writing code is one part of software engineering. You need to learn more about how to document things, how to debug things, how to build reliability in your things. Like how can people trust in what you have built, right? So there are a lot of aspects to software engineering and not just writing code. So I think learn those things, do some side projects, work on some open source projects, or contribute to some existing open source projects, because you'll get a chance to work with other people. In school and colleges, we do work with others, but usually in a group of 2 or 3 people. In companies, you will probably be working with 20, 30, 50 engineers, right? So that skill you can easily get by working on a big project, let's say some open source project. So do that, build something of your own, like in your resume, rather than saying I did these 5 courses, if you say I built these 5 things on my resume, that might be more impactful. Then Ansh is asking, I want to ask you, when you were in college, from where you start your journey of coding. So I was very lucky. I started coding very early on. Like I think I don't know whether it's taught in schools anymore. The first programming language I worked on was called BASIC, and I started on it, I think, when I was in grade 6th. Very simple programs, like nothing complicated, like. But yeah, started it in 6th, and in my 11th and 12th grade in school, I even did C++. So I got early exposure to programming, and I had little bit of acumen, I would say, for coding and mathematics, and I think that helped me grow as an engineer, or like get confident that I can write code. Yeah, that's what I would say. So I would say I was just lucky that I got exposed to programming very early on. But whenever you start, it's never too late. Basically, you start whenever you can. Yashvardhan is asking, as an engineering lead, does your work include more of code writing or more of project management? What do you enjoy more? So it definitely involves more of project management than coding, I would say. Which one I enjoy more? Definitely writing code. But that doesn't mean the work that I'm doing is not important. So I think it really depends on an individual. Like what you should maximize on is the impact that you are having at the company or wherever you're working. So I think I have more impact when I'm doing that project management, helping people out, doing design reviews, code reviews, because all of you in this call or people who are not on this call as well, you can write code much faster, much better than me. So that's not the place where I can have most impact. You guys can write much better code, like Raghav here, who's been working here. I know he can write 10 times faster code than I can. But that's not my where I can have the most impact. So I realize that, I understand that. But I do love coding. I do it on the sides. I sometimes pick up some problem which is not that interesting to other people. I'll just try to solve it on the side. Like it might be 5 lines of code changes here and there, but it can have good impact. So that's what I try to focus on, having more impact rather than actually writing a lot of code, which there are a lot more people in the company who can do better than me. Cool. So while more questions come in, what we'll do is we can dive deeper into what I was doing at various companies. And if you have any questions about specific technologies or specific thing that I did, I'll be happy to answer. So let's start with the latest one. So we can talk about FamPay more. So FamPay was initially built like a monolith. And again, if you guys don't understand any of the terms I say, please ask questions on that as well. I'm happy to explain. And till last year, the scale at which we were running was not that high. That monolith actually was okay and kind of made sense. In the last 1 year, we grew very rapidly. Like we have 6x'd our number of users and even the number of transactions we do. That meant some of the things that we were doing need to be rethought. So there's a lot of re-architecture that's happening at the company right now. There are a lot of new pipelines, not a lot of new services that we are building. Raghav, who is interning here, if you guys want to learn more about FamPay, you should talk to him and ask about his experience. We have been giving him a hard time about building a lot of things, but I hope he's having a good experience. So we've been building a lot of new services. We have also tried moving towards event-driven systems more than making just request responses for at least the non-core transactional flow. So wherever we don't require a real-time response from the service, we would try to make it go through one of our queuing systems so that it's more reliable. Those are some of the changes we are doing. And to give you an idea of scale that we have started hitting, so one of our databases, for all of you who have worked on any kind of databases, usually would know in the SQL world, you probably require a primary key. And then lots of tables and lots of systems in the industry, they use auto-incrementing ID as a primary key, where whenever you are inserting a row in the database or in the table, it'll increment the previous largest ID, increment it by 1, and then that'll be your new primary key. So one of our tables, which was using integer data type as the primary key, recently hit 2 billion rows. And I'm sure some of you probably know that the max range for an integer is around 2 billion. Basically, the day that it hit that number, everything stopped working in the database because it will not insert any new rows. So we had to do a big migration to move it to big int. So those are the kind of scale that we have started hitting now, and so that's why we had to redesign a lot of things. Going back to some of the questions on the chat, so Nikhil is asking, a lot of new trends are emerging nowadays, be it metaverse or AI taking our jobs. How do you think these will affect the industry? What do you suggest we should do as we are starting out in the industry? So metaverse is nothing but another opportunity. So think of metaverse as software for a different kind of engagement method. Like same way Android and iOS work on phone, metaverse or or rather what Facebook is building and calling metaverse is basically they're just building another software or OS or where you will be spending there, where they expect you to be spending a lot of your time in future. So metaverse, I don't think it affects your job or your prospects negatively. In fact, it should be taken positively. It's just a different way of thinking, or rather, let's put it this way, right? Right now, if you think about most kids or Gen Zs, and even you guys, a lot of us spend a lot of time on digital platforms compared to the physical world. Like how often are you not on a video call or not on your phone or not checking Instagram or not on your laptop? So what I've seen is usually you will spend more time in the online world than in the offline world. So it seems pretty obvious in some sense that metaverse is going to be big. It's just giving you a platform to just stay immersed in that experience rather than looking at your phone for 5 seconds and then looking somewhere else for 5 seconds. It's giving you an experience, or it's promising you an experience where you can stay immersed for a longer time. So I can totally see it being a big thing in future. Maybe not this year or next year, maybe 5 to 10 years down the line, but at least I think it's going to be big. But I don't think it will take away the jobs. Like even inside metaverse, or people who are building metaverse are still writing lots of code. So engineers will always be needed to actually build the experiences that they want to build. On the point of AI taking our jobs, so there are lots of people who are talking about AI taking their jobs, whether it's coding, engineers, designers, copywriters. But think of it this way, like AI, like we are thinking of it as a threat, but why don't you think of it like how efficient it can make you in your job, right? So let's say if someone asks you to build, I don't know, a chatting service, right? If you were to do it from scratch, it might take you weeks to do it. Now with Copilot and ChatGPT out there, you can ask ChatGPT to write code for certain modules for you. Like you still need to give input to ChatGPT, right? To get the output that you want. But you can do now the coding much faster. So what you should be doing is you should be not afraid of these things, but learn how to use them to your advantage and how it can make you a better software engineer. So that's what I would say. Utkarsh is asking, what are crucial components in making of system design of a finance-related startup like yours? Great question, Utkarsh. So I think one of the most important thing I'll say is reliability. Because we are handling money, at no point we can lose the trust of the customer. So we need to build systems which are very, very reliable. Once money is deducted from a person's wallet or account, it reaches the place there where they want to send it to. It reaches it there fast enough. If something fails, it reaches back to their wallet fast enough. So I think it's mostly reliability and maintaining the trust of the customer. Those are the important things, crucial components. So how can you make a system more reliable and fault tolerant? I think that's the biggest question we ask on everything that we build. Arvinder is asking, what tech stack should I focus on in college to step in a fintech company? So Arvind, I don't think you should tie yourself to a tech stack. The reason I say that is the stack that's working today might not be as relevant a year from now or 2 years from now or 4 years from now. Learn on or focus on getting more learning on how databases work, on how queues work, on how caching works, and pick up any high-level language. If you know one language, you should be able to pick up another language, but don't focus on one particular tech stack too much, because tech stacks change very frequently. So and again, even if you learn a tech stack, different fintechs might be using different tech stacks. So I don't know if there is one stack to rule them all. But if you have to start with one programming language, I would say Python or Node or JavaScript are two good choices to start. Both are very easy to pick up. So I'll say start with one of those two if you have no programming experience. But once you know one language, you usually can easily learn another one. what are good, Spursh is asking, what are good resources to seek funding for startup if we are trying it in college? So Spursh, I don't have a very concrete answer on this. I have never done it in the past. But what I've been told is you can usually start on LinkedIn. Like you can you can search on LinkedIn for people who are actually investors and who usually are headhunters for investors. So the way usually it works is all these big VC firms or investing firms, they have people like tech companies have, like recruiters. So they have they have recruiters who are looking for founders and who are looking for people who are doing startups. So you can reach out to those guys. That's usually a good start. They will first try to evaluate you based on the thesis that their VC firm has and what kind of companies they invest in. If it looks good, they will move it forward to the more senior people. So I think you can start from LinkedIn. I think that might be a good bet. Plus, there are a lot of other platforms right now. Like you can try applying to Y Combinator. There are lots of incubators as well where you can try submitting your application. And you should get back good feedback from there if there's anything to improve, or they might just ask you to come and join them. So there's a lot of platforms like that, or you can, if you don't want to go through one of those platforms, you can directly try looking for people on LinkedIn. Aditya is asking, speaking of tech stacks, what stacks and languages do you use at FAMPE? So at FAMPE, we use Golang as primary language for writing web services. We also have Python for some of our legacy services. We are not writing new services in Python. But yeah, Golang is what we use actively, and we use Postgres as our database of choice, Redis for caching, and Kafka for plumbing between services. So Yashwardhan is asking, can you tell us about some difficulties and challenges that you guys face in keeping your system up almost all the time? And how do you handle the downtime, as downtime in fintech is a nightmare? Great question, Yash. So to be completely honest, we haven't been 100% successful in keeping our systems downtime free. We do have downtimes, and every time it happens, we try to make sure that the same reason does not bring our system down the next time. And we try to fix it every time something bad happens. We try to make the system better for the next time. But we do use a lot of metrics, a lot of alerting, a lot of instrumentation to keep us informed. We try to put a lot of metrics so that we know several minutes before when a really bad thing is going to happen. Like let's say, for example, it's a common practice in industry to put alerting on how much CPU your services are using, how much memory they are using. And you want to put those alerting or thresholds in such a manner that they basically alert you in a way so that you have time to fix things before they convert into a downtime. So I think alerting and monitoring is something that we use. Plus, we also try to review every design or every change that we are making or releasing in production. Before we even start writing any code, we first write a document explaining what we are trying to do. And as an engineering team, we first review that document, seeing whatever the engineer is trying to do. Does it make sense? Is there anything obvious that we can see? And sometimes you miss things. So sometimes it happens that we'll miss that and we'll find out only when it goes live. But most of the times we are able to catch these things before they actually go live. Shreyas is asking, how should a beginner go about getting in engineering from a ground level? I'm guessing you're asking about software engineering because I probably wouldn't know about other forms of engineering. So I would say start with a basic book on computer science and programming. I think that's where you can get started and see if it is for you. Not everyone gets excited about programming and computer science. After all, it's most of the time you're sitting in front of a computer writing code. So it's a very indoor kind of job. But yeah, learn about programming, learn about operating systems a little bit, because that's where your code will be running most of the time. Once you get past that, start learning about different components that go into building a system, like a database, or a queue or a file system. How does a file system work? I would say once you learn enough about individual components, then try to learn about how to connect them together. How do they work together? Yeah, once you get that, I think you'll be golden. Siddharth is asking, why did FAMPay chose native app development instead of cross-platform like Flutter? So Siddharth, to answer this question, Flutter was not very popular at the time we started. It did not have as good a support as it has today. And also there were not that many Flutter developers at that time. So it takes some time for a platform to mature and have enough developers out there who can come in and quickly build the app. When startups usually start, they optimize for speed to market, or how fast can we go to market. So they usually try to pick a platform which the early engineers are most comfortable in. If our early engineers were comfortable in Flutter, we would have chosen Flutter. But because they were not, that's the reason why we did not choose Flutter. We constantly reevaluate whether we should look at Flutter, and we internally are looking at Flutter. But once you have an app running which has like tens of pages in there, and each of them needs a migration, and then how Flutter will work together with React and with native components, it makes it more complicated. So hopefully soon we'll come out with few things in Flutter, but for now, yeah, we will stick to React for at least web development, and native we are doing Java and Swift for Android and iOS respectively. Spursh is asking, what is the better choice, SQL or NoSQL for backend management and bug data analytics if you want to scale our application? Spursh, I don't have an exact answer here. I think I need to see what all the features that you are building. So usually the way you want to decide SQL or NoSQL is a couple of ways. First is your data. What kind of data you have? Is it a relational data? Do you want to keep a normalized data? The second is your query patterns. What kind of queries you will be doing on that data, right? And the third will be throughput requirements on how fast you need it to be, how many queries you'll be making, what should be the latencies. All these three inputs combined together can help you decide whether it should be a SQL database or a NoSQL. But without that, for any use case, you should be able to use either of them, and it should work. And yeah, you said big data. So again, most people think if data is large in size, NoSQL is the way to go. But it does not every kind of query patterns or every kind of big data requires NoSQL. You might be able to make SQL work. Rohit is asking, what are some good practices that we can follow while pitching an idea or product during a hackathon and hopefully in the future while building a startup? So start from the problem, start from the customer. Like who's the customer and what is the problem you're solving, and why your way of solving the problem is better than what everybody else is doing. Or another way, why is nobody else doing what you're doing? What is the special thing that you have, or special insight that you have, or skill that you have, which nobody else has? Because that gives you an edge when you're pitching. Like this, only I could do this because of A, B, C, and D. It could be some of your experiences in the past. It could be you have faced this problem particularly in more detail. It could be you could have found such a great algorithm or a way to solve a problem. Nobody was able to think about it. It could be the tech today is much better than 5 years ago, and that's why it takes that's why we should revisit and relook at some of the problems. So it could be any of those reasons. But yeah, start from the problem itself and the customer, and why are you the best person to solve that problem? Siddharth is asking, can you tell me more about your experiences working in big companies and learnings? It's a very broad question. So I can say experience was great. Like I loved working at lots of those big companies, especially because I was very lucky to get some very impactful projects there, both in terms of my personal satisfaction, like I felt like I made a good impact, and also in terms of the actual impact that it had in customers' journeys or customers' life. And usually in big companies, you have to be lucky to get that kind of work because, again, because they're so big, not every team at a big company is doing some interesting or challenging work. And yeah, so I would just say I was very lucky that I got this opportunity. In terms of learnings, I would say, so at big companies, small things can have big impacts. So let's say we talk about WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp has about 2.5 billion users in the world. Probably one of the biggest service in the world, if not the biggest. And even a single line of code that I write at WhatsApp will impact 2.5 billion users. But does it satisfy my personal technical curiosity? Maybe, maybe not. So that's a very personal question. But yeah, I would say is work experience was great. I loved working at those companies. Learned a lot. Like, how do you talk to different teams? How do you collaborate with other teams? How do you negotiate with the product manager on what you should build, what you should not build? How you should talk to customers and figure out what exactly are the problems that they are facing. How you should build reliable systems. Because at big companies, yeah, they are more about reliability than smaller companies. Smaller companies are like, let's get the scale first and then we'll figure out reliability later on. But big companies usually, because they're already so big, they care about reliability a lot. So how do you build better fault tolerant systems? How do big distribute systems work? How have they built their current architecture? So there was a lot of technical learning and non-technical learnings at all of these companies. Vanya is asking, what is the work culture at FamPay? So it's a very subjective question, very difficult to answer because I am obviously biased that I'm working at FamPay. I would always say it's a great work culture. Everyone should be working at FamPay. But it's a very subjective question. If you have any specific question about something, I can try answering that. But other than that, I will say it's a very collaborative environment. People try to help each other out. We try to make FamPay successful as a company, and trying to help each other to achieve that. It's a smaller company. We take pride in the work that we do. So every time there is a downtime or things fail, people get on call, whether it's in the middle of the night or during the day, because they take pride in their system. They want to showcase it as a badge of honor that they work at FamPay. So it's a great culture. And a lot of technical learnings. As I said, we are hitting that kind of scale where there's a lot to learn and a lot to contribute. Like, we are still in a hyper growth phase. So there's a lot of learning opportunities and contribution opportunities. And yeah, everyone, I hope, is trying to make as much impact as they can and actually succeeding in doing so at FamPay. Siddharth is saying it would be fun to be part of new things at FamPay if they try it with Flutter. So yeah, so as I said, we are internally looking at Flutter. We are prototyping few things in Flutter, but we are very conscious about a lot of things. And one thing, for example, I'll say is we tried few things to move to Flutter, and as soon as we added that to the app, it increased our app size by, I think, about 15 MBs, or like it basically increased our app size by 50%. And that's a metric that we monitor, that we should not increase our app size that much. People are still on data plans and conscious about data. We don't want them to download a big app every time, right? So it's a trade-off you make, like whether we should do it right now or when we are ready with more pages and there is more impact. Right now, doing it for one page and adding that much size to the app might not make sense. Rohit is asking, as a hopeful future data scientist and analyst, one of the things I've read and heard is that we need to have certain business understanding and understanding the gist of the problem one is trying to solve. What are some problems that FamPay might be currently facing, both technical or company-based, and how does your team go about handling and solving that? Exactly correct, Rohit. Yes, we do need to understand business problems and customers before you actually start solving them. In fact, I asked all the engineers that they should know by heart the impact that they're having or the problem they're trying to solve. Why are they trying to solve it? What business metrics would it move? When the project is done, go back and look at the metrics, ask the product managers what metrics it moved, why, or if it moved the right metrics, what's the next step? If it did not move the right metrics, why it did not, and what are the next steps? Some of the problems I can say about FamPay is facing. So one is definitely scale. Like we are scaling as fast as we literally can. And that comes with its own set of challenges. Like things that used to work at 10,000 scale might not work at 1,000,000 scale. And things that used to work for a transaction when we were getting 10 transactions a second might not work when we are getting 100 and 1,000 transactions a second. So that's the technical piece of it where we are definitely facing a lot of challenges, and we are trying to solve them as well as we can. On the company side, I would say it's about how can we build for more customers. So right now, as I said, we build for mostly cater to teenagers and school-going kids. How can we build products which are useful for even more older audience, like college-going kids, maybe people who have just started working. So finding that key value proposition on why they should use FamPay and not a PhonePe or a Paytm or a Google Pay. That's something that we are still trying to figure out. Raghav is asking, how do you figure out a niche you need to cater to because you don't know everything about different skills? Just start learning something. Okay, so he's probably answering to somebody. You just start learning something, and if you feel good doing that, that work. But how do you know if you do other things, you might like it better? So how to actually learn what niche you want to cater to? Okay, so Raghav posted, but Rohan is asking it. Okay. I don't have a good answer for this. The short answer would be just try out different things. Something will stick. I, in my career, have tried learning the breadth of things rather than going deep into one particular thing, and nothing against going deep into one thing. I think those people are the most valuable to big companies who are expert at certain thing. I wouldn't call myself an expert in anything at all. Very generalist. But because I'm a journalist, I like learning new things. And for me, I'm not trying to find a niche for myself. So I think it made it easy for me. But if you are trying to find a niche, I think the only way I can think of is try to narrow it down based on different parameters. And as soon as you can narrow it down enough, just try out whatever options are left, and hopefully you'll find the fit. Spursh is asking, how is FamPay using data science and machine learning to improve user experience? So we use a lot of data science, not that much machine learning in the traditional sense. So we use a lot of analytics. We have a lot of metrics for everything that we do in the app. We do a lot of experimentation and A/B testing, and study the data on what we should be releasing, what we should not be releasing, study user behaviors to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what works for a certain kind of users. So we use data science in that sense. So I would say mostly data analytics, not using traditional machine learning as per right now. I think, so we are hitting a scale now that machine learning would start making sense. So machine learning usually requires a lot of data. Because we were very small, we did not have that much data for machine learning to make sense, like I would say 6 months ago. Now we have started getting that data that we actually will start getting into ML and data science more. But till now, analytics and heuristics were making enough sense for us that we didn't need to. Gurjot is asking, what tech stack, language, or skills do one acquire to be eligible for FamPay or other big companies? So most big companies usually don't care that much about tech stack. That's what I know. As long as, so most companies would actually interview you regardless. Like if they see a decent resume, it doesn't matter what tech stack you're using, because at most big companies, every language that you can think of will be used somewhere or the other in the company. So it's not that only certain tech stack or language is useful for them. Any language would work for them. The main thing is, are you a good software engineer? That's what they care about, not really that much about tech stack. And we follow somewhat similar strategy at FamPay. We don't care that much about tech stack. We would still interview you if you're a good candidate, and mostly check you on general software engineering skills. And if you are good enough in there, and there we are happy to help you out in your learning journey once you are here to learn our particular tech stack, but we don't expect everyone to know exact tech stack that we are working on. Abhijay is asking, what major qualities do tech companies usually look for while hiring a software computer engineer? So there's definitely technical skills, like they usually, and definitely look at technically you can write code, you can follow instructions, and different levels have different requirements. Usually companies have different levels of hiring. But yeah, computer science skills, analytic skills, can you think on your feet given a new kind of problem? Do you have certain principled approach on how you approach a problem? How well is it to work with you? Are you collaborative? Do you can you take feedback? Because usually in the interviews, they'll give you feedback and hints, and how well you use them is also a signal that they take. Yeah, how curious you are about things, how much have you researched about the company? Yeah, I would say those are some of the things that usually companies look for. Nikhil is asking, I would love to know what FAMPE is planning for the future. Would you be going international? So Nikhil, we don't have any immediate plans of going international. We do have plans of broadening the user base that we cater to. And as I said, we are still brainstorming and exploring how to do that. But that's the near-term goal that we have on expanding our user base from just school-going kids where we don't have much competition to users who have access to other platforms as well. How do we make sure FAMPE provides them the best value? So I would say that's the biggest problem we are trying to solve right now, but we have no plans of going international at this time. Siddharth is asking, now that there is a change in startup culture, what do you suggest as a fresher? Should one join a big corporation or a startup? Both have their pros and cons. I think big corporations are good for learning. Because they have a lot of mentoring or mentorship opportunities available where there are a lot of senior engineers working and who can mentor you, who can tell you the right way of doing things. So I think it will depend on you. If you learn more by doing, or you learn more by reading and someone telling you what to do. I think big companies where you can read more how they build systems, someone can mentor you and tell you how to do things. And small company or a startup would be where you have to get your hands dirty to learn everything. So it would really depend on you. But neither of them is a bad option. Like both of them are good options. It mostly depends on you. Priyansh is asking how to balance between practicing coding as well as keeping up with the changing technology, given that every moment we get a more optimized, better technology to work upon. So that's what I was saying to some of the earlier questions. You cannot learn every tech stack or every piece of technology that comes out. Your goal should be to focus on basics and learning models on like various problem solving models. Like when a problem comes in, I know how to solve this by doing A, B, C, and D. Now A could be done by different technology, B could be done by different technology, C could be done by different technology. And then when the time comes, you will Google and learn the technology, or you'll use a bot like ChatGPT to say, do A in technology A, because that's what ChatGPT would be able to do. But breaking it down into smaller problems, into smaller solvable problems, and getting the model ready is something that you still have to do. Sparsh is asking, what are the major challenges in scaling the application for highly increasing demands and simultaneously adding new features to improve user experience? How do you feel? How do you deal with them? And which of these do you prioritize more? Great question. It's always a constant battle between the two. We are constantly adding new features along with scaling the application. But sometimes when you add new features and you want it done very quickly, they don't go that well with scaling your system or keeping it at a certain scale. So it's a constant battle. You usually sit with product or business and try to rationalize with them on what we should be doing. In some cases, you win and you are able to convince them that we should not be doing the feature right now and mostly focus on scaling. In some cases, you lose and then you work on the feature because it's really important for the business and then come back and then fix the scaling problems. So I would say it's a constant battle, constant negotiation between business and engineering. But in the end, company should win. That's it. Bhavya is asking, what is the most promising field in computer science for girls as a career? I would say every field. Like again, there's no single field which is more favorable for girls versus boys. I would say any field and every field, girls are showing that they can do better than boys in most cases. So I would say any field that you pick up, as long as you are dedicated to it, you really want to do well in that field, you should be able to do it. There's no particular field in computers which I'll say is more promising than the other. Whatever you want to do, like it's every field is as open as you want it to be. Spurs is asking, what are some of the strategies that you adopt to outweigh your competitors in market and widen your user base? So we're very focused on data. So we are a very data-driven company. And again, I would say most companies are, or most companies should be if they're not. So, but we feel that's one of our strengths, that we look at data before we decide which user to acquire, which user to not acquire, what features to build, how to build them. Yeah, I would say that's, if I have to say one thing, that will be definitely data. Other things are definitely our marketing strategies. Like we market to certain kind of audience on certain kinds of platform where we think they are more active. Engineering, where we have a very small team, which is very focused on delivering the value, right value to the customer, very customer focused, and having a lot of ownership. Like if you would believe, we have 12 full-time engineers right now at FamPay, which is a very small size compared to some of our competitors. And every one of our engineers have amazing ownership and that customer obsession, and they want to do better for the customer. Yeah, so I'd say those are some of the things. Gurjot is asking, sir, what qualifies the companies look for? What qualities the companies look for while hiring interns? What we as college students can do to be a good coder and get internships. So companies usually for interns, we look at people who can execute well, who can, because as interns, this is probably some of your first jobs. You haven't done jobs before, you haven't worked in the industry. So it's mostly about how well can you execute things when someone asks you to do something. How good is your communication skill? Like by communication, I mean, can you align all the stakeholders? Can you work with all the people involved? Can you keep them updated on what's happening? And can you learn? Like that's the biggest thing I would say. Can you learn new things? So as long as you can learn things quickly, because at a startup, that's what we need. You being resourceful, you able to figure out how do you unblock yourself if you're blocked? How do you learn new things? How do you start contributing back to the team? How do you add bandwidth to the team rather than taking bandwidth out? Because when you join a new company, usually someone has to help you out, right? So how quickly can you start contributing back? So most of the time we are looking at, do you have basic technical knowledge? How eager are you to learn new things? How excited you are about that? And mostly, do you have a learning attitude? I think it's more about soft skills than coding, but yeah, you should have a basic understanding of coding. Like you don't have to be a great coder. I don't think you have to do like, I don't know how many problems on lead code are there now, but you don't have to do like 500 lead code problems. Like as long as you understand the basics, you can write basic code, you can follow instructions, you can learn. I think you're good. How important was DSA CP in your journey? I'm guessing DSA means data structure and algorithms. CP, I have no idea what that means. So data structure algorithms, it wasn't that important, to be honest. So big companies do rely more on that for interviews, because big companies usually, so smaller companies, they can focus on every individual when they're hiring. Big companies, because of the sheer scale of the people that they're hiring, they need a common process where every individual goes through the same process and they can say this individual is better than the other individual. So DSAs are usually more important for a bigger company than a smaller company. I would say I was just lucky enough that I did not face that many complicated DSA problems in my interviews, and yeah, I was able to get through some of them. Vibhav is asking, I was wondering whether you can put some light on your journey as a standalone developer in the engineering to the engineering lead FAMPE. How did the work change? Essentially, how different is your work compared to Raghav's? So Raghav does a lot of important work, and I mostly do meetings. So my work is to unblock hurdles in Raghav's work. That's in essence, in one line, that's my job. But in all seriousness, I don't write that much code. As I said, I try to write for my personal satisfaction here and there whenever I can. So as an engineering lead, your job is to make your team faster, better, happier, and whatever it takes to do that. So how can you remove roadblocks from their path? Are there certain processes which will make the team better? Make the team align towards a goal that this is what we want to achieve, and then set the team for success, like hire the right people at the right time so the team is set up for success. So I think that's the leader's role. An individual developer's role, and especially Raghav, let's say, for an intern role, is mostly about execution. Like, are you able to execute and add value to the team? And can you start helping out other members in the team and add to that bandwidth? So I think that those will be the differences between a lead and an individual contributor. About my journey, I started as a software engineer in Goldman Sachs, and then Microsoft, and then the same at Amazon. And then when I moved to Yahoo, I started as a software engineer, then gradually transitioned into tech lead, and then an engineering manager. But as an engineering manager, also, I was writing a lot of code. I think I did not realize what being an engineering manager means at that time. So yeah, I was trying to compensate for coding, sitting late at night, that I still need to contribute more with code. And I think slowly and gradually I realized that I can have more impact doing something else. And then at Essential also, but I was missing coding as well. So at Essential, I went back to coding more, but then slowly again came to the same role. Same thing happened another few times. And then at FAMPE, I realized, I think it's time now that I take a step back and then try to empower other people to actually write code who can do it much faster and much better than me, and step back and try to help them do better, faster work, or as fast as they think they can. Sparsh is asking, has the current economic slowdown affected some of your product plans, and how are you dealing with it? Yes, not in I would not say drastically, but yes, they definitely have. We were planning on a lot more experiments, or a lot more new features this year than what we will actually ship. I think we are more calculated on what we should be shipping. We were if you were doing 100 things last year, I think we'll do 20 things this year. So I think that's what it has changed. Like, it's more focus and more scrutiny on what we are releasing, more questioning on why we are releasing it. So less products, but hopefully more refined and more useful. Shreyas is asking, how does FAMPE handle changes in regulation put forth by RBI and central government? So we try to comply with them as quickly as we can whenever something changes. We do partner with RBI and NPCI and all the government bodies, constantly checking in with them about our processes and how we are doing things, and getting that feedback even before the actual regulation comes out. So, and I'm sure this is true for all the other fintechs as well, or all the other companies as well. They're also in constant touch with these organizations, so that they are not surprised by when a regulation comes out. So usually there is a fair bit of heads up when RBI releases something or announces something. They usually reach out to various companies for comment, like, this is what we are planning to do. What do you guys think? Any objections? So you get a sense of what direction they are going in much early on. But yeah, we try to comply with them as fast as we can whenever a new thing comes out. Sparsh is asking, as a fintech, how do you view cryptocurrency or blockchain, and you're working on any features related to that? So I'll answer the second question first. No, we are not working on any features related to blockchain or cryptocurrency at this time. My personal view is I'm very bullish on blockchain. It's great as a technology. I can see a lot of interesting use cases where blockchain can be used, and very, very bullish about it. As a company, we have not tried venturing into blockchain or cryptocurrency, mostly because we have not even solved what we were trying to solve right now. So again, coming back to the example of what we are trying to do this year, we are hyper focused on things that we think are useful for customer, where we can have the most impact. Cryptocurrency and blockchain, even though they are very, very powerful tools and useful, I think we have some time and we have some other things that we need to build before we get to cryptocurrency and blockchain. Like, we don't need to get there right now. Our customers are like, again, listen to your customers. Right now, our customers are not asking for it. Shreyas is asking, how does FAMPay handle changes in regulation put forth by RBI and SEL? Oh, this come again. Okay. Both from a technical and marketing point of view. Same question. Like, from the technical point of view, you have to be nimble. You have to be ready. And as I said, you do get prior notice. It's not that it happens in a silo. RBI does talk to you before they release a new regulation. And yeah, listen to them, provide feedback, and be ready to change whenever it comes out. And I would say same for marketing. Like, our marketing team is also very nimble. Whenever something like this happens, they can quickly bring up or create some new marketing campaigns around it whenever we have to change anything. So it's just, I would say, just be very nimble and agile whenever something like this happens. Nikhil is asking, we are having a hackathon in the coming days, and FAMPay shared a couple of problem statements for the same. Any advice, tips for solving them? I would say talk to your friends and your colleagues or your classmates. Try to, yeah, so as I said, start from customer first. So try to talk to them. Like, look at the problem statement, talk to the customers and ask them what are the problems they are having and how can you solve that kind of problem for them. Yeah, that's the only advice I can say. Start from there. Siddharth is saying, asking, how has the Indian government supported you as a startup? So I think we have constant dialogues with them. So NPCI and RBI, both, we are having constant dialogues with them on how we can do better, how we can comply to regulations better, how we can build a better product for our customers. And so again, I think founders or early employees might be able to give even a better answer for this. But what I can say for right now is I see them helping us with regulations, them helping us with speeding up certifications, or like giving us an insight on what they are thinking of coming up with in future. So giving that time to us. So I think they definitely help us in like setting some, so let's say some of the policies as well, which RBI has set up and NPCI has set up. Like, if we did not have those policies, we might have done our own thing. But when we read those policies, it makes sense to us why they have done this. It helps us as a startup in the end. So, so I would say some of the policies that they have set up and the support that they've given us in terms of speed, regulation, guidance is probably what I will say. But early employees might be able to give a better answer for this. Agrim is asking, when hiring, what are the various skills companies ask? So they usually look for coding skills. 1 or 2 interviews are usually based on coding. And in coding skills, they're not just checking whether you can write code. It's just your analytic skill. Can you solve a problem? So I would say problem solving skills and technical skills in the form of coding are usually what 2 things they look for. And other than that, it's mostly a culture fit kind of thing. Like, are you a good culture fit at the company? Which usually is checked by, are you collaborative? Can you take feedback? Can you, how do you respond to feedback? So those are, I think, 3 main things. Like, I would say technical skills, problem solving, and a culture fit. Then Vikas is asking, should we focus on DSN coding or other skills like web dev, app dev, etc. skills? I think if you're going for a big company interview, you should definitely focus on DSN algorithms, because that's what they will ask. If you want to be a better software engineer or a better engineer, I think you should go for building apps and building backends and building web dev, become a web dev, those kind of skills, because they will anyways teach you coding. And DS algorithm is something I feel you can pick up very quickly. So whenever you need to interview, just spend few weeks, month on this, and you'll get decently good at it. But the other parts, app dev and web dev and backend development, they take more time. So I would say if you can focus on those things more and then come back to DS and coding when you have an interview. Siddharth is asking, what difficulties did you face while integrating UPI? So integration is not that hard. It's simple APIs you can integrate. The majority of time goes in certification and certifications and compliances. So when you integrate UPI, you have to go through, your app has to go through several rounds of certifications. Your backend has to go through certification because NPCI and RBI want to make sure your systems are safe and secure. So you have to do security testing, you have to do penetration testing and vulnerability testing. So there's a lot of testing and that you need to complete. And there's also a checklist of test cases that you need to pass for NPCI and RBI to approve you as a UPI app. So I think those things take more time. Integrating or just writing code is the easier bit. Spursh is asking, how has your experience of working at FamPay after the big companies and which have been more supportive in growth as a developer? So here at FamPay, I have not been writing that much code, so I wouldn't know how much support we give as a developer. I think you should ask this question to Raghav and he might be able to answer better. How has my experience been? So experience has been great. As I said, at big companies, I was lucky. I got to work on very big, impactful projects. But I did not want to join another big company because I thought I learned similar skills. I learned similar things. So that way, it has been great because I do learn new things every day at FamPay, whether it's the hustle, the nervousness of working at a startup, the challenges of scale. Because at WhatsApp or Uber, they have solved scale. Right? WhatsApp is at 2.5 billion user scale. There are 7.5 billion people in the world. If every user gets on WhatsApp, every user in the world, they can only 3x from this point. Right? It's a massive, massive scale, but they can only 3x from this point. FamPay, like 6x in the last 6 months, right? So those are some of the things that it'll be very difficult to learn at a big company. You can obviously learn how they build the architecture and you can read things, but doing things usually will not happen at big companies if they're already so big. Jayati's, okay. Mohit is asking, what ways do you rely on to generate feedback from your users? So we do surveys very often, in-app surveys, where we ask users to fill in surveys, give us feedback. We also have feedback on every transaction. They can give us feedback whether they liked or not liked it. There is a support page where they can come in and provide feedback. On App Store, they can provide ratings. We also do phone calls to users, asking them about feedback. Yeah, so those would be some of the ways. Abhijay, on what parameters can we judge if a startup idea would be relevant enough to work well in the real world? Who is asking for it? Like, who is the customer for it? Just go and talk to those customers. They will tell you whether they would buy this. So if you can find at least one user who will pay for the thing you're building, it might be worth building because then there might be more people like this. But you have to find at least that one person, right? So talk to real people and figure out whether it's actually a problem that you're trying to solve. Rohit is asking, seeing as every company is faced with users who try to commit fraud, how does FamPay detect and handle these kind of users? Great question. And this is something that we're trying to build a very sophisticated system now. Right now, we use simple heuristics. We have simple rules. If a user does A and then does B, it might be fraud. Or if a user does A 5 times in a day, it might be fraud. So we have simple rules in place where we try to detect patterns and say this might be fraud. But we are trying to get more sophisticated there because our users have gotten more sophisticated and they're trying various other ways to fraud the system. So yeah, so there's no great answer at this time. It's just, I would say we have several rules to detect these kind of users and we are building more sophisticated rules. Agrim is asking, what's the role of internship in career building and how to get a good internship? So internship, I would say the couple of things internship will give you. One is if you haven't had experience working at a company, it'll give you that experience. How is it like working with others, where it's a bigger team, not just two friends working on a project or a small school project or college project, but what will be like working in a team? How is it like pushing code to production? Because that's very different than when you're doing your own project. Other things it helps with is definitely improves your resume, because then the company see that this person has actually gone ahead and done something. Like you can replace internship by doing great projects as well. So you don't necessarily have to do internship. If you can build your career resume that way as well. But internship does help you in learning those soft skills and also as I said, basically learning how to do things in production. How are things done at a company? Because they're very different when from how you do a project. And how to get a good internship, just apply. We are also hiring. You can definitely reach out to me or Raga. But yeah, do apply on whichever company you admire and whichever company you think can add value to your career. Do go to their careers page or find people working at those companies on LinkedIn and give them a reason why you are a good candidate. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot for the questions and thanks a lot for your insights, Shobhit. I think it was a very great session, and Team GDSC and CCS is like thanks for taking out your time.
Oh, sure.
वो काफी बिजी चल रहा है काफी दिनों से, so एक दो घंटे भी निकालना बहुत बड़ी बात है. So we'll be ending the session now, and I'll be dropping Shobhit's. I think you're open on LinkedIn, right? Yeah, so I'll be putting your LinkedIn on our YouTube channel as well. So if anyone else wants to revisit this session again, they can check out our YouTube channel. Tomorrow, we are going to be having HackTU 4.0 in partnership with the Creative Computing Society. And we will be having two problem statements which are sponsored by FAMPE. And I encourage all of you to try it out. I hope this session has encouraged all of you to sort of get excited about building and creating new things. We'll be there. My team, GDSC and CCS, both will be there, and we'll be helping you out in building your ideas. So yeah, I think that's it. So let's end the session now.